And it's really important where you're from and being proud of where you're from. A big thing about what differentiates us from other people in financial services, Steve, is that we're really proud of where we're from.
Mm-hmm.
I will swear, I'll say what I think, I'll talk about drugs, mental health, struggles, whatever else, because otherwise social media becomes some form of highlight reel of what people want you to see. I mean, when you know the people who are posting, you're thinking, I must know a different person. Like, so it gets quite short.
Yeah,
There's a short shelf life, right, because of that. What was like as a kid? Well, in the 80s, I'm an 81 kid, so I'm 41 in June. Middlesbrough in the 80s was a wonderful place to live. Nothing but love in my heart and in my, in my memories about that time. I remember being one of the only kids in the school, me and my sister Louise, just in the room next door. She runs our admin department. She won Administrator of the Year last year as well, so across all financial services, which we're very proud of. We were the only, I think, one of 3 kids I can remember in our year group whose parents had separated.
Okay.
The jump from our honey going to school, and me and mum had separated, but we're still good friends, me and Lindsay. As in, we're all my kids' mums, Very lucky that the brilliant mum, Steve. Was that it's the other way around now. Not many kids actually, parents stay together. Yeah. That was quite a culture shift. We were the odd ones out because our parents stay together. And I knew my dad was a bit different. He worked the doors. He was a bodybuilder, and yeah, it was a little bit different. We didn't come from a normal family. That was quite evident to me early on. A couple of my uncles did really long terms in prison. Mm-hmm. Drugs was quite the norm in our area, and meant, when you look at people to look up to, mentors, heroes, you were always looking up to either a hard man or a drug dealer or the local gangster. And that was, I don't know if that's just Teesside, but that was many council estates across the north of England in the 80s. But you know what, I learned some real values from that area that have held me right across my life, right the way across it, that we've now took into this job. And yeah, as a kid, I probably had special education needs. I don't think there's any two ways about that. If you meet me for longer than 30 seconds, you think he's a little bit different. And my daughter, Honey, who's my princess, is autistic. And the more you learn about something, you think, oh yeah, I probably had that. But at school, it was just a case of, I think they used to say I had St. Dance. I was naughty, I was opinionated, but I was just a little bit different, I feel. So, but yeah, childhood was great.
But the reason why I find it really interesting is that a lot of entrepreneurs were rebellious and naughty. I probably had more detentions than most, and it was just, for me, I used to get bored. But what was also quite funny is that my parents got divorced when I was probably about 10 or 11, and then it was at that age where I'd just gone to secondary school and you start getting into a bit of trouble. And I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was just I was rebelling a bit because I was unhappy, but it's easy and to see how things kind of can develop over time. But the funny thing is, a lot of people that go on to have a drive and stuff in life and really push hard to work hard and do great stuff often have challenge in their backstory, because it gives you that fire to really kind of go. So then how did you get into what you do now? What did you do through school? Did you leave school at 16? Did you go to uni? What did you do next?
Yeah, I think just before I touch on that part, challenges as a kid growing up, I was always like a bedwetter until I was about 13, 14. Okay. And that was a massive thing in my life, wetting the bed, not being able to sleep out, going to a football tournament. I always wet the bed. It's linked to a couple of incidents from childhood. I can see now through counselling, and this time with Sarah, who's my counsellor stroke, somebody who I love very much, my friend, my dear friend. And then people who are successful, I agree there's some sort of childhood trauma to drive there. I also feel that this, from a special education need, there's something there where people who are sort of on the spectrum seem to excel in certain areas. And then people who've got addiction issues. Richard Coulson, my mentor, who's from Geordieland, he'd say to me, in our industry, but he uses sport, movies, music, art. The special ones, they're all a little bit different. They're all a bit mad. You have to be the special one or to be the number one. You've got to be odd to be number one. And I like to study greatness. I'm always studying, different people, whether it be a billionaire, an entrepreneur, or a great leader, or a sports person or a sport, I always look at, and they always are a little bit different. I totally agree with what you just said there. Yeah.
Because what I was finding quite funny is, just to jump in on that, is that
Yeah.
I've got this one theory, and like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people I grew up with think I'm posh now, but it's almost where, I just, because I went to uni and did quite well, but I think working class people have got a very good bullshit meter. You can tell within very quickly if someone's full of shit or not. And I think it's especially what we both do, and we, do social media and stuff. You get a lot of people that just chat shit and they talk about stuff, but there's no real substance there. There's no real drive. They're kind of just doing it for the sake of it. But I do think that, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, I would have been jealous of people that had private school education and all the stuff that I didn't have. So my mum raised 2 boys, and she worked her ass off multiple shifts and jobs to do what she did. And I learned from that, and I used to be jealous of people that go on foreign holidays and do all this stuff that now I'm fortunate enough to do. But it's that kind of, I wouldn't change it. I would have if you would have asked me when I was 16, 18, whatever, but actually. So then what did you do after school?
I agree with you, by the way. I was the worst hater and jealous person in the world for such a long time. I carried such envy and jealousy in my heart for people who were being successful, or people who had nice things, or people who were actually excelling in life. And all it was just me being unhappy with me, but also the conditioning we got as a child from the estate, that don't trust the rich, they're trying to steal from you. They all got the money by ill-gotten gains. They'll have a big mortgage but no food in the fridge. It's all on tick, it's all on finance, all on the credit cards. It was always that they're taking from us, son. Now I carried that into my career, and it was a real drive for me from a long time. I'd argue with London, I'd do videos about the London lot. We'll beat them, they're soft, fuck them, they get bigger premiums. And you know what? I think at some level, though, you need that level of ignorance to sort of excel to a degree before you evolve and start to grow. I absolutely needed that level of ignorance. It needed someone as ignorant as me to step up and beat them people. If he didn't have that level of ignorance and venom inside of me, I wouldn't have been able to perform the way I did, help others in this wonderful team I'm part of reach the heights that they did in some small way, if I didn't have that driver of hating these people. And it was hatred for me. I fucking hated them. I wanted to beat them so bad. A daddy's boys, fuck him, we can beat them, we'll show them. And it used to keep me awake, and now I think, whatever, it's not their fault, it's like, to be honest with you, they can have 5 rich parents, I don't give a fuck, we'll beat them anyway. It doesn't really, because you become comfortable with who you are and you grow as a person. But mate, I can relate to you, and I really admire you for being so open and honest about it.
Because one of the things, it was on a podcast, and this, whenever you do anything, you have to find something you love, and I love this. I love talking to people. I can't remember which guest it was, and they actually didn't grow up that far from me, but their life went a different route. So they went to private school. He admitted they had quite rich parents, and he had rich friends growing up. And I had a chip on my shoulder that rich people didn't work as hard, and that was my background. And he kind of, when we were talking through, I realized that probably was just a bias that I had that probably wasn't true, but I still, it's part of the fuel that gives me the juice to do what I want to do. But when you get a bit older, you get a bit wiser, and you learn to kind of look at stuff differently.
Yeah, you do.
But I still don't want to lose the kind of that thing, because I know that's something that other people don't have. It's that gear. And almost the way that I always think about it is that we both probably had to work twice as hard or harder than some people to get to the same level. But actually, because we've had to graft to get to that point, we know how to work at that speed. As well, I think a lot of people don't. And I've got friends that went to, 2 parents growing up, middle class, went to Cambridge, got the first job, piece of piss. They never really had to graft. They just kind of got everything. And they get to a certain point in their career where kind of plateaus, because suddenly they don't know how to work hard. And then you get the people that are working class that, manage to keep up, and they can fight through. And so I actually think it's a superpower now for a lot of people if you've got that kind of background and drive.